The photo, it looks so like bright, and then
When you do a video.
yeah. Okay, scooch it.
Scoochie.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how to start.
Whatever comes first.
Well, it's interesting because have you ever felt suicidal before?
I feel like a lot of, like when I was younger, it was probably more with attention. I wanted attention. So I was just doing things I don't think I really wanted to do it. But when I got older and I felt it, like I didn't have a plan, but and I don't think I could ever do it, but I definitely felt I didn't want to be here anymore. You know? So
Do you know when people say that suicide is selfish? Do you think that suicide is selfish?
honestly, I feel like people don't understand it. If you understand, if you ever get that deep to the point where you're considering it or thinking about it, I could never tell you that's selfish of you, because you're only doing what you know how to do best. People say it's selfish, and to me, that for them to say that it's selfish is selfish of them as well.
I agree.
So, because you even though you may say like, well, I've been there before, I know I wanted to take my life before. We're all different. We all have different stories. So your story is not the same as mine.
Yeah.
Or hers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that anyone who's ever truly felt suicidal would ever think that it was selfish.
You're so far in it that you can't even think of anything else but your pain.
Yeah. And needing out. And
How can you even think about anyone's feelings when you're so far gone?
And I feel like for me, one of the things that was the distinguishing factor for why it's not selfish, because when I was suicidal, if I would have felt like I had one person that gave a fuck or cared or whatever, like you start to actually think like such warped stuff about who you are, and that like everyone would be better off with you. Not only would you be getting out of this like pain, but also no one else would have to deal with your shit. Like you don't see yourself as something valuable, so you can't, in that mind state, even fathom that anyone would be impacted, whether or not it's true, you know. So it's like, it's not selfish, because you literally think y'all will be better off without me, you know. And then I think the people that say it's selfish, like, why the fuck? How do you think that the person that might need to tell you that they're feeling that way, if you say that to them,
How it would make them feel.
yeah,
How worse it would make them feel.
yeah,
Or even just saying that or thinking that out loud about someone that's gone, they can still hear you.
yeah,
And for you to be like, that was so selfish of you to do that, and da da da, they can still hear you. And that is not helping them transition
no,
in whatever room they're in at this point.
nope.
So,
And it doesn't help the people who are going through hard shit, and even though you don't communicate it verbally, you communicate it energetically, and then people don't share. Sometimes I just need to talk to people, and it's
Yeah.
like, if that's what you're giving off, I'm always baffled that that's people's first, like,
initial
response.
response, yeah.
Which is like, oh, so it's all about how all of, this person caused all these people that much pain. And then this, as shitty as this sounds, it's like, well, if we're playing that game, since now the focus is
Pain?
your pain and everyone else's pain, how many of you guys are going to be in so much pain that you're going to want to kill yourself?
Right.
Or you're going to be up all night agonizing or whatever the fuck. It's like, you that person obviously felt like they had to do that. It's not selfish. It's sad. And it
You
goes
just don't
into that.
see a way out. And like you're hurting so much that you don't even recognize your own self. You know what I mean?
No.
They could, like, it gets to a point where I was like, who am I? Like, what is going on with me, you know? But to, like, you just want to get out. You just want to get out of pain, and you don't know any other way. Like you don't think it's gonna end, and that's the thing. It's like, when is this pain ever gonna end? You don't think it's gonna end.
Do you think, you know how people often say, like, it's just in that moment, you know, and it's that they think some people commit suicide in the spur of the moment. I don't think that someone just has a moment of, like, or a bad day and they're like, I want to kill themselves. But with what you're talking about, like, when you felt that way, like, I remember feeling, like, cognizant, like, understanding, because I'm not a fucking idiot, like, I know that this won't last forever, yet it won't get better, and this pain will come back. Like, even it just coming back, or just not having an escape from the possibility of it. Like, I don't know. It's like both at the same time. You can't believe that things will ever get better.
I feel like you've had multiple times, right, that you felt this way. For me, there hasn't been a lot of times, and so that my first initial, like, I didn't think there was a way out. I honestly didn't think that, oh, time will heal. You know what I mean? I thought I was just like, I'm fucked.
Yeah, I thought this pain will maybe, like, get, like, on a like a brain level. Like, I know it's not always going to be this agonizing, but yet there was always pain for me. You know what I mean? So it's like, on some level, like, that pain was always there, just certain times. Anyway,
also, like, when people would ask me, like, what's wrong? I didn't even know how to respond to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't even explain what I'm feeling right now because I'm just so, your mind gets so consumed with these thoughts that are hurtful, and you keep repeating the stuff in your head.
Like drowning.
Yeah, it's just like a downward spiral, basically. And it's just like quicksand. You don't fucking see yourself. You can't get out of it.
No. It's like full immersion into it, you know? Body, mind, heart, soul.
Yeah.
And yes, that's a good point. Like, what's wrong? It's like not being able to point something, like, specific, you know? Oh, this happened. My dad died.
Right.
Okay, well, that's understandable that you might be feeling sad. But what happens when it's just like everything and nothing? You know what I mean?
Or even when you know what triggered it, but can't explain why that specific thing triggered you too, because it's an accumulation of things. It's not just one specific situation. It's like, okay, I might have, like, broke up with my girlfriend at the time, and then all of a sudden I just went in this deep depression and wanted to kill myself. It's not only because of that relationship, it's past traumas.
Yeah, that becomes the last straw.
Right.
That was just the catalyst of, like, no, done. Not, no. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's silly for us to think that suicide is just, like, a result of one fucking thing.
Right.
But I want to talk to you about this because you've experienced losing a friend this way just recently, right? And I wanted to talk to you about how, like, it's been impacting you and where you're at, because that's another thing. There's, like, two common things I fucking hear through the collective. One is the selfish thing when we hear about it. Yeah. The other thing is where people get to the point where they think, oh, if I would have known, or I would have done this, and I would have done anything, and all of that, right? So, like, have you, just tell me, like, what you've been, what's the thing that is hardest, you think, about losing someone to suicide as opposed to anything else?
So, like, for me, like, I went through the whole, like, oh my God, she reached out to me, you know, like, she was asking for, like, spiritual guidance, and I didn't give her all the tools that I had that could have helped her. And then I get to talk to a lot of people that loved her and felt the same way. You know what I mean? Like, I could have done this, and she called me this day, blah, blah, blah. Like, everyone's feeling the same way. And it's almost selfish of me to say I could have done something. Who am I to do something, right? I know God. You know what I mean?
But you could have. I mean, yes and no. You know what I mean?
You feel like you could have. By the end of the day, when their mind is set, their mind is set. And there's like, I think there's things that can help people right out of it, and that's why I'm bringing awareness to it. But it's like it's something that you don't really talk to a lot of people when you're going through it. Like you don't want to say, I'm having suicidal thoughts.
Right, which
I
is
don't
a
wanna be
problem.
there.
Why
Right.
can't we say that? That's like when we need to, because
And even if we did, right? And so it's been repeated, like through the years, it's been repeated. Like for her, I know that she's had these feelings before, so maybe we just should have been more aware. But to have known that, you feel even more guilty.
now if you were to be honest, like harsh, that blunt, whatever. Do you think, as a shared, like we all belong to each other, right? So Danny had a community, and this is not me judging. I'm asking, like, if we, like, not holding everyone responsible, but if we as a community knew, for instance, someone is struggling, and they reach out, and then they commit suicide. If you look back into your community, do you think maybe there was anything that could have been done, like collectively? Do you think that anything, without like giving you guys any go, do you?
No.
No. I'm only wondering because the thing that I think
There's only so much you can do.
Right. But what I see when people like do commit suicide and how it sits with people energetically, it's almost like some people are constantly scanning, kind of like that what could I have done thing, if they don't get to a place where, they can let go. It's torturing themselves with all the things, or the moments, oh, that person reached out to me, then if I would have blah, 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 because I knew, or I whatever, like, and then some people, are just fucking oblivious, and really, there could have been a difference, that was made.
I think there's certain situations that people could have done something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, meaning, like, not trying to put any guilt on them. Like, I just think that help is there. Sometimes we don't recognize that someone needs help, though.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when the way Danny comes off, like she's always like in the best mood, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like brightens the room, like, hey, what's up? Like, but honestly, my last moments with her, I went out for her 35th birthday, so my last moments with her, I did recognize though, like she's a lot quieter, like she ain't talking, she's very within. Not like usually she's like, hey, and like she was very to herself. I did notice that, but at the same time, I thought that she was on a good path because we were talking about healing, and she was asking me like, how did you do it, Denise? How did you get through this? How did you asking me like, how do you know when you're being called? Like, and sometimes I interpret that question like, what was she really talking about when she asked me that? Called home or called to heal? Now I like replay those things in my head, and why did I answer that last phone call that she gave, when she called me, I was sleeping, and like stuff like that. So I'm like, oh my God. And when I asked her what was going on when she was going through a breakup and she wasn't really being responsive, which she usually is talks to me about everything and in detail, like this is what happened, da da da. And I was like, all I told her was like, when you're ready, I'm here, because she wasn't responding, and and usually she responds to me. So to me, I was like, I should have took that as a sign. Why didn't I do more? But sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes like people are like,
and it
in
shows
their
up differently with everyone,
Yeah.
and some people they don't at all. I mean,
yeah. And also, I heard like, well, from like studies, I heard that in your final moments when you actually decide to take your life, you're elated. So it's almost unrecognizable that you're
Yeah.
about to do something to yourself.
yeah,
And that day, like, she had talked to some of my, her friends, and it's like, we're gonna go down to Dinah Shore, blah, 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 like, should I get some drinks, like, stuff like that. Like, she was planning out the day.
Mhm.
But then, all of a sudden, she comes home from work and does that, right? And takes her life. And it was planned out. It was totally planned out, because she had to get, the things that killed her.
yeah.
She ordered things that killed her, like the
Right.
chemicals and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. She sat there, like, wrote a note, and like she sat there. And it kills me. Like, what were her thoughts in her final moments? Why? What? Like, did she think that it wasn't really going to happen? Did she think that she was going to be saved? So, and it kills me because, like, it's like that repetition in your head, like, going over it, and it's consuming you. Like, I could have done this, I could have done that. What was her last thoughts? Oh my God, I should have known. Like, why you want answers? And there's no answers. Like, you just want to be out of your pain. That's it. It's not selfish. And it's selfish for me to even, like, want to know all those things, I feel.
Yeah, but not, because I feel like that's an expression of care. It's like when you lose somebody, like, because we lose people differently. You know what I mean? I've only known one person that committed suicide, and he was someone I didn't know that well from high school, but it fucked me up.
Yeah.
Like, when I found out, because he was like the sweetest soul. And even I, like 5 years later, thinking about him going and standing in front of a train, and I thought about his last moments and how he must have felt and what it would have taken for a person to get to a point where that was the option. And I couldn't believe, and it was like, if I would have known, like, maybe I should, fuck, I started thinking about, well, maybe if I would have kept talking to him, like, when I was 18, and we would, and I can't imagine being closer to someone and having that experience. And it just, I guess, because you and I talk about energy, when a person kills themselves, it sticks with other people, like, in a different way than, like, other losses do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, it's not.
And
the
sometimes
way
I
that it
feel
stays with
like
people.
I feel selfish of my own pain because of it, because her family, imagine how they would feel. But here I'm like wallowing in my pain and I'm like grieving over her, and then like I express it, like I really truly express like how I feel, but then at the same time I almost feel bad for feeling the way I feel, because they're like, well, how about her mom? Like, how about her brother? Like, like.
So you're
How
not allowed to have pain because other people.
Yeah, so in a way, I feel that way. Like, who am I to like have all this pain? Like, and can't even like nearly imagine the pain from the people that she was with all her life. But she meant everything to me, like so.
Yeah, no, that's another ridiculous way we torture ourselves.
Yeah,
too. When
yeah,
we start
totally.
telling ourselves how we shouldn't feel
I
or
shouldn't
whatever.
feel this. Yeah.
Like, you feel as much as you feel because you love,
Right.
and it isn't
Right.
like, no.
Yeah.
But it just shows up on the collective, like, so different. It shows up energetically and, like, in people's bodies as, like, a failure. Like, it's like a shared failure. That's just the honest expression of it, right? Because on some level there is something that we can do or pay attention to sometimes, right? Not all the way there. I don't believe that in people who are, like, just fucked up in the brain and just fucking kill themselves. I think it's, like you were saying, a collection of fucking unhealed trauma, and then And I guess I want to start the dialogue, also about like how can we do our best to like not get to that point. You know what I mean? When we have to be like staying up all night and grieving and wondering, and then circling back, or having to find the resolve of like, yeah, well, this is what they had to do, because you have to hold that place of compassion for that person. That's the choice. You're grieving, but you're always going to be like racked with that guilt. But sometimes there's just so much fucking, I'm just being honest, so much fucking neglect. Now I'm speaking from my experience because I had a different experience. I expressed myself with my family and friends like retardedly, and it wasn't for fucking attention or whatever, and blah 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 blah, and it was like unbelievable what people were not willing to do. It would never line up with what people say once people die that way, and they're like, I would have done all this shit. This is so human. Anytime someone dies, we are present to their value. We would do anything to see them again, and all of that stuff. But the reality of it is like oftentimes we aren't willing to do that stuff or like pay attention. Like I don't think most people would communicate it the way that I did. And I would hope that most people would not have family and like the certain friends that I had surrounded myself that would do fucking nothing. You know what I mean? Like, so in some cases, it's just outright. It is a failure of
The collective.
yes, the individual and the collective, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's fucking not. But we like, how do we not do that? How do we not carry that? Like, how you're really good at like processing your stuff, and so you're gonna be able to move what I'm talking about energetically, blocks people and starts to fuck them up. You know what I mean? Because this is like a tiny little seed that's planted in people's minds that works against them. Because on a core level, if some part of you feels like you failed someone and it like potentially like cost someone their life, which is just how you'll spin it in your head,
Right.
it becomes the thing that keeps you away from everything that you love, because you don't feel like a good person and you don't feel worthy and you don't like, so people that don't have the fucking skills to even realize that, or like aren't actually feeling and processing the way that you have the ability to, or some of us do, like, I don't know,
What can we do?
what can we do? Or like,
Well, honestly,
what have you
like
like,
what I've learned. Okay, so I've talked about this a whole bunch with you, but like because I've experienced so much loss, right? And I could have like one loss, and the impact would have just been the same for me, honestly. But to experience loss, for me, that's why everything I do is with love. Like I make sure that you know that you're loved. And I told you, like it's hard to break any kind of connections, because even when they're not good for me,
yeah,
because I just want to, at the end of the day, if anything happened to you, Lord have mercy, to lose one more person, I don't even know if I can handle it,
yeah.
So I just want to, at the end of the day, make sure that everyone that I care about knows that they are loved, no matter what.
Yeah.
If I have an argument with you or whatever, like at the end of the day, you know that you're loved. I would never like shun you. I would never be needed something. I would never cut you out. Like, and that's the thing about like
But
cutting people out of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I have done.
But it's very
to
difficult
benefit
for you.
for self-care.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy thing, because I hope those people that I've cut off in my life know that I still do love them and truly care about them.
I think people do.
So that's what I've learned through loss.
What is, you've gone through a lot of loss. And like I said, I've never experienced anyone close.
Right.
It would like, I imagine it would fuck me up, because I think about, for instance, my brother, if he committed suicide, how different it would look or be.
Right.
Like I had said to my family, if he kills himself, he's not gonna fucking say shit. He's not gonna fucking leave a note. Like there are things I know, you know what I mean? And it's gonna look different. I'd rather, because we express it differently, right? But it scares me, and I think about like, oh my God, what if that ever happened? I don't know how I would bear it, right? But I've gone through loss, and I don't have personal experience. You have. What would you say, like, is the thing that makes this different, or what feels different about it? If it had like some kind of extra feeling or difficulty, or you know,
You mean this?
like how is losing someone to suicide versus like old age or cancer or fucking,
Okay, because
how is it different or
you
harder?
feel like you could have done something.
I don't know.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's because you feel like you could have done something, and you feel like something it could have been prevented.
So does it make you question like if you're a good friend, or if you're
It doesn't question me that I was a good friend. I just it makes me think like I need to check in more. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
checking in
yeah,
and
not missing something?
yeah, but it's difficult though. Like you have these relationships with people, and you get into relationships. You kind of distance yourself from, not distance yourself on purpose, but you know, like you get into relationships, and then so your life changes. You start families, and then so
Yeah.
you're not like
Exactly.
in close proximity
Yeah.
with your friends as much.
You
Or
don't tune in, and
we got work, we got lots of stuff going on. We got our own issues.
yep.
So we're not always checking in, but
And even when we are, like you were saying, like
even when we are,
that's a shameful thing, like to even say. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so even if someone does say it,
yeah.
which is, I don't think it's very common, you know, for unless, yeah, I don't know. But do you think that it makes it more difficult to have like closure? Like how if someone's old, or they're sick or
Because
something.
it's expected.
Yeah, because it's expected, and because like it's almost like something else, like fate, or you know, it was like their time or whatever. But this, with all the questions and shit, do you think that may have, like, people may have a harder time
Healing,
like
from
healing
it.
that?
Yeah, definitely. Because like if you lose someone to like a disease, or to old age, or to a car accident, even, right? Like, that's kind of things like, okay, the closure is like, okay, the car accident happened, or like old age, okay, expected, okay, disease, okay, expected. So you don't have as much questions. So when it comes to suicide, there's so many things that like you're like, whoa, like, and then you also like, a part of me feels like I could even go back and like change things, like, and that's not even like even humanly possible to do. But a part of me in my like weird brain like thinks like sometimes like, oh my God, like let me go back to that day and then she'll be back here. You know what I mean? Like I have these like weird fantasies about, oh, I can go back and do something. But there's so many questions that's always gonna go unanswered. So many questions that, you know, you're just gonna live with, and you just gotta like let that go. Like, and to me, there's, you know, those questions that's gonna be unanswered, but my only answer comes from within. She's not suffering, and she's transitioned, and if I don't let that go, then I'm not helping her transition. If everyone has to let that go from this realm, and for her to
Yes.
transition, because that's why like I want her to be happy. I know she doesn't want us to be suffering,
No.
and so for that's the same thing, like, oh, that's not even selfish, like she's still up there saying like, I don't want you guys to suffer.
Yeah.
But because we're holding on to all these questions,
Yep.
and like even in her note, right, it's nobody's fault. It is nobody's fault. Like, you know, it's nobody's fault, and she did what she had to do to take care of herself, and that's it. And so if I don't let that go, if whoever doesn't let that shit go, the drama or the pain, or I mean, not the pain. The pain's always gonna be there, but like those like what ifs. That you're not letting her go peacefully, and all I want to do, because I get caught up, and I get emotional, like, oh my god, I need you here. Like the other night, I was just like bawling and watching that video, and then I was like, I need you here. And that's so selfish of me.
No, it's
like,
not. No, it's not.
And so, but then, like, that's not to me letting her go. And now it's not helping her.
Yes,
it's not
it is.
helping her transition, though.
Yes, it is. And I'll tell you why. Because you're totally opening up a great fucking conversation. And this is so amazing. This is why it's so, an extra layer of why it's so scary to me about, like, suicide in particular. One is just that a lot of times it doesn't need to fucking happen, and I believe it is absolutely preventable. I can't speak to Danielle's case, but I know that not everybody, yes, some people just do make the decision, and it is like, I'm not even gonna go there. I'll say for me, in my situation, I would represent the part of our collective in which you can be in a situation where people push you to, like, you're enduring abuse or whatever, and literally, like, it is your way out. I didn't want to die, but I definitely wanted the pain to stop. And the pain was coming from outside, and yes, inside a little bit. But that's not what it always looks like, you know what I mean? But talking about energy, and how I was saying, people wear this, like, on them different energetically, and it holds them back. And they, you know, as we try to avoid pain, because that's what the fuck everyone does, they don't ever address that. And not only does it fucking contaminate them and what they do and their whole life, it also holds a cord to the person, and they can't transition. Like, you have the awareness of knowing that how we are linked to people energetically and how we think about them and carry them will impact how, or even if they can transition, because sometimes they get stuck in the middle.
She was definitely stuck for a while.
Yes. But her energy was a lot with you. And when you were saying that, and I understand why you say this, how when you, like, miss her and you're grieving for her, and you feel selfish because you have the awareness that, like, you're recalling her energy, thus you're calling her for it, so you may be preventing that. You're not doing that, actually. And what I was going to say is, because you're in alignment and in truth and in, like, what you're feeling, that it's not the same energy as, like, when someone is, like, resisting something or has unfinished business or, like, whatever. To, like, when you're in a pure state like that, and you have the awareness about how you two are connected, like, it's just like, kind of like visiting, you know, because when we talk about someone, they live on, you conjure their energy, so you call them back, right? But if you aren't, like, you don't have to be like, I shouldn't feel this way or sad, because you're honoring her life, you know. And I told you when I came over here to see you, like, she was like here, like, the energy was with you, and that says something.
And I was like, I know. Yes. It's like, did you feel it? Like, it's crazy.
Because you needed to be somewhere safe and more, like, you know, true in that spot. And also because you were working in assisting her in transitioning on behalf of the community in a way, like, for people who don't realize that and aren't, like, you can actually become the channel to work on that for people. And definitely. So that's also why you'll feel a lot of the emotion, even maybe more, because that's why, you know, that's part of your energy.
And I definitely like felt that, and that's why I really had to align myself and be like, she needs help transitioning. It's okay for me to grieve, but this is like, if anything I could ever do, right? If I felt like here on this earth I didn't do anything for her, at least let me, like, help her transition to the next realm, you know, like. So I definitely felt that, and I definitely felt when she transitioned, and I definitely felt when she was stuck. Happily, like, I'm just happy that she has transitioned, but there's still tugs on, like, you know, like, there's still, like, some cord sometimes, like, that I know is happening, that's like tugging on her.
Yeah.
But she is where she is supposed
Yeah.
to be. But there are some people that need to like I'm not saying let go and like get over it.
No,
like,
no, no, no,
Or
no.
like
No,
let
I know
her
what you're
free.
saying.
Like, just let her free. Like,
Because
you know
it's
what
an
I mean?
energetic thing that you're speaking to. It's
Yeah.
not like let it go, get over it.
Yeah.
It's a certain kind of energy that they're carrying
Yeah.
that's associated with her that is attached.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that they need to
Yeah.
resolve. It's like they need to reconcile whatever that thing is,
Yeah.
which is so difficult to explain. But it's a good point because I don't know if this happens for you, but if there's ever guilt, if you're feeling like you're grieving too much, you're doing that, like try to remember that sometimes you might be moving somebody else's shit for them, and it might not actually just be yours. It might be that you're doing the work for the community, for people who aren't tuned in, but because you're tuned into them and the field, because you're more open, that you could be processing some of that shit for them, and so you don't have to feel guilty about that because you're mindful, and that's kind of your
Yeah.
continued assistance, you know.
Yeah.
But man, people never even talk about shit like that. Like people don't even know, you know, that we like have these cords to people. That's also
Yeah.
why, going back full circle, right, to my shenanigan conversation about like the energy between like Tatiana and Maya and I and the conflict, how I don't like to leave shit unresolved if I don't have to, because it's a cord, you know what I mean? And like depending, and I know it's significant based on how I feel. So if it's like, yo, this is something I don't want to be tied to, because this, like, I would love to resolve it, but sometimes you can't get complete with the other person, so you have to figure out how to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Because we do get trapped in places.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you know that cord, even though you sever it, right? There's always that last string of hope, right? That might didn't snap, because that's why things get full circle, because it's probably gonna come back around again, and hopefully it's gonna have a different outcome, or you can be able to resolve it at another time. But things are full circle, so if things have not been, you can cut it off, right? Like, okay, I'm not gonna deal with this, but eventually, if it's not resolved, it's gonna come back around,
Right.
and hopefully at a better time when
Yeah.
you're ready.
Yeah. Sometimes not even in this life.
Yeah.
But there's ways that we can like complete it as much as we can within ourselves. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's not complete, but I agree with that. But it's, yeah, I don't know. I just been thinking a lot about personal responsibility and alignment. You know, it's like oftentimes like what we say and what we do and how we carry things. But
Yeah.
I was just curious. I've never talked to anyone about like what it's like or whatever. And I feel kind of like part of one of my missions or our missions. It's like I call it the Suicide Squad. There's like hella running missions, obviously, but like my brother's best friend committed suicide. That was a big deal. Then like suicide coming up for me, you know, it being so close to him. Like I saw that as, for instance, like for Chuck, because he was carrying it so fucking much. Like it's in all of his music, and like his regret of denying his friend, you know. And I see how he's using it now to like sabotage himself unconsciously. And then what do you know? Spirit, universe, whatever, presents another opportunity in the way of, believe it or not, his best friend's sister becoming suicidal and ending up on the train tracks. And I felt like that was, even though it wasn't about him and me, later on I was like, oh wow, he had an opportunity to actually clear that block with his friend Kevin by doing it differently, because it was presented differently, right? Kind of like, oh, now I know to pay attention, or
Right.
maybe now I know to do whatever.
Right.
And it just makes me sad because he didn't do it, but but that's because people around him don't pay attention. We don't often pay attention to like what are people's wounds, or how do they hide, or how do they sabotage themselves, and you know, and vice versa. People don't pay attention to us, you know. So it's real
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, and unless you actually go through it, you're not really, unless you like have really been on the deep end, people won't recognize it. And I don't wish anyone to be on a deep end, but also in that deep end is like where you find your truest light. Honestly,
Yeah.
like when you get through it, you find so much light, and there's so much wisdom in it, and there's so much. And so I'm grateful for my pain.
Yeah, me too.
But however, I don't wish anybody pain.
No.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's
Yeah.
hard,
I wish I didn't have to learn it that way, you know.
but it's the only way you learn.
Do you think that like we should only be able to recognize it if we've gone through it, or like
No, I don't think. I think that that's where, we try to do the whole awareness thing, like how we did the suicide walk. And, there's certain organizations that put that awareness out there even if you haven't been through it. But it's hard to understand unless you've been there,
so
or
how,
if you've been affected by it.
like how like, what are some things that like we can do to be aware of it? Like how do we, what are we looking for? Like what
I think a lot of, like, to me, communication is everything. Like, being able to have a support system and just be able to talk about anything that you're going through. You don't need to be depressed to talk about things, but to have open communication with someone, to feel supported and valid, and, in whatever you're feeling, whether you feel like it's wrong or whatever. Our society, like, really makes us feel like our feelings, or to show feelings, is wrong. And to just, like, know that it's okay to feel the way you feel.
yeah, and it doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't need to make sense.
I think
and
that's a problem
feelings
too.
no matter what you feel, your feelings are valid.
Yeah.
I might tell you, like, you're doing too much or whatever, but your feelings are still valid.
Right.
You know what I
Right,
mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I might not agree with your feelings,
Yeah.
but they're still valid.
But they're
Yeah.
still valid.
And
They're
you
always
don't
going to
have
be valid. So to me, communication is everything. And sometimes when people are in dark places, they feel embarrassed to
Right.
feel the way they feel.
Yeah.
And
There's
I
a lot
think
of shame. That's a lot
it
of shame.
starts within your own little community, whether
Yes.
it be within your family,
Yep.
or your school system, or just your
Yeah,
neighborhood, or your just like anything that's surrounding you, whatever your social life looks like, just to like feel like you can speak to someone.
Yeah. Like they're somewhere safe.
Yeah,
So I feel like,
a brave place.
yeah, a braver space.
Safe and brave.
It's like, okay, so recognize, because I'm like, okay, solutions and blah, 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 blah. Like, on both parts. So, the communication, obviously, right? Like, it becomes like, each of us to be able to express where we're at emotionally, no matter what, right? That's like our own personal work. But then realizing, okay, suicidal people are probably people who are going to have a difficult time. They're not going to be the ones to take initiative all the time, right? Because it's a difficult thing. But we still have to work on letting people know. Because we're not fucking psychic, right?
Right.
But on the other part, what we can do is pay more attention. Like, get more invested in knowing these little, like, nuances about people, right? Like, I know if I'm not hearing from Denise and she's doing X, Y, and Z, then I know she's having a hard time, because these are the things that she typically does when she's feeling disconnected, right? It's going to look different. So it's like a call to action to both people. It's like the individual and the collective. Paying more attention, so it doesn't.
And also, though, I just want to add this in, is that sometimes people who are suicidal act very normal.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has a lot of different faces. So for the ones that act normal, it's kind of hard, right? It's like really hard. Like, but like checking in, like, is always like the only thing you can really do.
Well, people need to start learning how to read energy,
Yeah.
tuning into
Yeah.
people, because
What's
despite what a
happening in your
person
life?
says with their words, you can feel it. Like the question you were saying earlier about, like, do you notice what my energy is when I'm this kind of tired, or when I'm this kind of whatever?
Right.
Because there are subtle, like, nuances.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes people will fucking say something and you know something's
Yeah.
wrong, right? So instead of just denying that, if we stay tuned in to people and you get that little, like, it's just like, I'm gonna keep my eye on that, right? Just really paying attention.
Yeah. Paying attention is like big.
Huge.
Because people like have that, but then they don't acknowledge the
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And also, like, what was I gonna say? I just feel like when people do act normal sometimes, it's still okay to check in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
because they're acting
Yeah.
normal to you doesn't mean like you shouldn't check in.
Yep.
You know?
Mhm.
You don't only check in when something's off.
Yep. Yep.
And also listening, right? Because people like have conversations and their head is like, you know, like nowadays they got their fucking phone and they're just like, yeah, you know, you know, and they're really not paying attention to anything word you're saying. They're just like, yeah, like this. Everyone's so distracted, and it's, to me, it's a conspiracy. Like, this is a distraction. Like,
It is.
like,
It is.
the distraction is like we're just falling lower and lower in a
Connecting
lower
to the
consciousness.
internet, and you're not paying attention to what's around you.
Yeah.
Like
It's-
your environment, your, like,
yeah.
body, your the person in
You're
front of you.
concerned about these celebrities that you don't even
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Like, or you know what I'm saying?
Yep, yep,
Now,
yep.
how are they inspiring you, or how are they lifting you?
That's like
how, you know what
that's
I mean?
a trick too. Exactly.
How are you impacting your community
Exactly.
by being so consumed with
Somebody you don't fucking know.
and it's drama?
Like, and it's great that, like, yes, there's no shame in, like, people
No,
taking a
not
platform,
at all.
but to recognize the disproportionate relationship on how we feel so connected to people who, if you break it down, are fucking strangers. You don't know them,
Yeah.
but what the fuck? Do you know that much about your best friend?
Yeah.
What's their favorite fucking food?
Right.
What's their favorite like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So invested.
Right. Are you supporting their dream?
Exactly.
Right.
And I just did a video about that. Like, do you ever notice how much we post, like, celebrity shit that, like,
Uh-huh.
oh, this person said something really fucking, look at Lady Gaga, she's fucking dope. That was a
Yeah.
hella empowering thing. But, like, your friends have, you know, you post a poem or you fucking do a fundraiser. How often do you see people, like, share that shit or fucking, you know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
why not invest in,
Your people.
yes, you know, even
Yeah.
that way. But with our phones and our, like, everything constantly going, it's just been another way for us to not be paying attention.
I'm so like
to this.
I'm not saying that I don't indulge
Yeah.
sometimes at all, but I'm definitely, when I see people like constantly liking celebrities pages or the drama, or like, oh my god, did you see what that celebrity said, and that, you know what's I was like, I have no idea, I have no clue, but it like makes me think like, wow, where are you on this, where's your consciousness, you know, like
That's where it is.
where is it, like, because then I think like I can't really connect with you, like, because you're on some other weird level like that I can't connect with you on, and it's upsetting.
Yeah.
Because it can be my own friends, or
Yeah,
you know
totally,
what I mean.
Totally. And they're saying that that's happening more and more, actually, with, you know, like, now that there's a generation that's never not had phones and the internet, and so much of people's lives are on the internet that is actually what shapes their view of reality,
Yeah.
right? So where people's realities are so different now because you're only seeing so many people or things that you like are in your feed,
Yeah, right,
which are
right.
more similar to your views, which is
Yeah.
also contributing to why we can't fucking solve problems, because you're not used to even fucking seeing shit
Right.
that is outside of what you think, so you really begin to think that that is fucking reality,
Yeah.
right? And then you just fucking you block or unsubscribe to some shit you don't fucking like,
Yeah.
and that's it, you know? It's like, people don't even know how to fucking have conversations. Texting and stuff, whew, people don't call, people don't
Yeah.
Facebook, it's a trip. Yeah, no, we got off on a tangent, but
Yeah, we
I
did.
think my phone probably stopped, but I wanted to keep
I know.
talking for a tiny, tiny bit.
I do have to pee so bad.
No, you're not allowed. I hope I pressed record.
I hope so. I was
Oh
wondering
yeah,
that.
it did.
Okay, cool.